Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Visas.AI attorney collab. We're nearing the end of 2023, and I'm joined by some wonderful attorneys and non attorneys, including myself. Today's spotlight attorney is attorney Allison-Claire Acker. Thank you so much for joining us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
And then we have also attorney Ashley Morin, and then
Hi.
we have even some offline guests who happen to be attorneys as well. And then Gabby, lead of partnerships at Visas.ai. Thank you for joining, Gabby.
Thank you.
So, diving right into it, I will give a quick introduction to Attorney Acker, who is a 1988 graduate of the UCLA School of Law, and she was recently named the Southern California's top female attorney of the year by LA Magazine. She has over 30 years of immigration law experience, and her bio is just very impressive. And we're just honored to have you with us. I'm going to jump straight into it and say, how did you generally get into law, and what captivated you specifically about immigration law?
Sure. I didn't know any lawyers growing up. I knew mostly teachers and artists. So there was a TV show called The Defenders, and I thought that was the most amazing thing. So at age 11, I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted, that was my goal. I kept with it and followed my dream and ended up in law school. And then when I got there, I was a little confused. But my journey forward, I was going to be an employment lawyer. And so I got a wonderful job at a New York based firm. And when I got there, the immigration attorney had just been fired. And so they asked me if I would, for a period of 2 weeks, babysit the immigration practice. And that over 17 years. I initially did both employment and immigration law, and the employment side, like all other areas and disciplines of the law, helped immigration lawyer, but I decided I liked immigration a lot more. And so I built up the practice group and I stayed with the firm. And that's why I'm an immigration attorney today. So that was my journey.
That's awesome. Firm that you're a part of doesn't obviously specialize in immigration, but it has sort of like a division that does immigration law.
That was my old firm. And then I went to an entertainment based firm that had an immigration group. And this is my third firm, WR Immigration. I've been there since April of 2006. And we are a boutique immigration firm of some 200 people and 9 offices. Although when I started, we were one office and one small group. So we've grown, and AI has been a huge part of that growth, actually.
Very exciting. Yeah. AI is a conversation, and I think it's really, I always say this, but my background is in marketing, and we've had AI, and we've adapted AI years ago. I think as we're forced to, but I'm really happy to now see it enter all these different fields, including a field that I would think is very serious, and you guys would not like AI. But it's true. The more I speak with attorneys, the more I understand that there's a strategy behind it, but then there's also a lot of communication, evidence collection, client communication that isn't necessarily in need of an attorney doing every single thing, but rather AI could help with. So we're not saying that AI is going to actually write your brief and fill out your forms fully. There still needs to be that aspect. I do want to bring in. I really want to bring in Gabby, and maybe let Gabby ask a question specifically about the use of AI in your practice
Sure.
Yeah, I'm
on the
really
spot.
I'm really curious about what kind of software that you guys use and how you utilize AI in your practice. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We use it in a couple different ways, but our growth has been because the leadership of the firm decided that we needed to move forward, and we got rid of all our file room. We do not have paper files anymore. And they also invested in building our own information and document management system. Um, and then
the firm, help document information management
system to their
WR for the name of the firm,
and it is amazing because it's very intuitive.
Gives us a lot of the the drudgery of immigration law.
It's a much better because there's so many dates and so much information, but it's also very intuitive in helping the clients. The clients go to a portal, they upload the information, and it really saves us a lot of that go back and forth, so we can actually focus on the practice of law instead of merely focusing on the paper.
Unfortunately, a large part of immigration, but it really helps with that and to move
our whole firm forward. And as a result, other firms who were interested in also moving forward joined our firm for, to be able to take advantage in their practices. So it's been a wonderful way of also recruiting really amazing attorneys all over the country. And as I mentioned, we now have 9 offices. So, in 2006, we had 1. So, very AI driven in that aspect, but also in the casework itself. And that's a second part. There are certain cases and types of cases that really lend themselves to AI. I'm not talking about brief writing as much as I am talking about creative writing. And, the AI is only as good as the data information and everything that's put into the system. So in this way, we use it to maximize the ability of our writing teams to write for, say, O and P, the artistic visas, and for researchers, and it really makes a huge difference. And instead of the old days when we'd word process and cut and paste, we're able to use the AI, and it really makes for a more efficient office. And I think it's just better for the people who are working and doing the really hard work in the firm, because it keeps them out of the mundane. So
Yeah, a wonderful tool. And I think just AI that can do things like read approval notices and do the data entry really
right.
clears people up to do the higher level tasks.
Yes,
And
we
be
call her
super helpful.
Rosie, and Rosie scans everything and scans it right to the file. So everything is there. There's, again, less of those touch points where things get missed. There are occasional errors, but there's a backup system. So that, all of those things that used to take an inordinate amount of time are really streamlined. So, I'm obviously a big proponent.
Yeah,
That's really awesome and inspiring. It sounds like you guys are very similar to our firm, in that you saw a need and then you decided to do everything that you could to push the envelope forward in order to change the industry. And that's really awesome. I'm props to you, Pierre, for finding Miss Acker, because we love finding attorneys that share our vision and our values. In our firm, we also developed our own proprietary software as well, that uses AI in a little bit of different ways, but sort of similar to yours as well. We're actually introducing some of that document parsing next week. It's rolling out. I just got to have a little preview and test it this week. So that's really exciting that there's so many of us in this industry that see the ways that it can be changed, and which in the end benefits all of our clients.
Yeah, ours is developed on a Salesforce platform. So we use Salesforce as a platform.
Oh, wow.
But
That's cool.
every day something new is happening, and they're continuing to refine it. And usually there's a new rollout every week, and we learn a little more. But, yes, it would be interesting to see, where these thinking almost unique paths are actually converging and diverging. And, because I think obviously you saw the need as well, that the off the shelf products that were out there just weren't meeting the needs. And I think the application of ours will be broader than just immigration law. I think it's going to be, in other fields of law as well. So that'll be
That's awesome.
interesting.
We're hoping to go that direction too. So I'm really interested to see how
Let's see what
we
happens.
align on that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about specifically visa types, so you've mentioned O's and P's. I did want to ask you what visa types were you working on these days? Would they be those two, or are there further visa types?
I'm I'm the last of the generalists. So I handle everything on the business side, which includes entertainment. So I work on L's, a lot of E's, from startups to large corporations. And I do, even F change of status. I have an interesting niche in surrogacy and immigration. And so I have a lot of, I just finished, we're about to submit a J program. So to keep it interesting, because I've been doing it so long, I really like to have a full complement of different kinds of cases. That's what makes me happy. So I don't just do H's. I don't just do L's or E's. I do a lot of different things, and I do some crimmigration. I'm dealing with a DUI issue right now. So I'm a little bit broader, but that came with time and experience.
Yeah, I definitely think that keeps it interesting. At my last firm, I was doing just L's and EB1Cs, so I was pretty niched down, which is fine. I mean, you develop a level of expertise in it. But here, I have the opportunity to work on, a much more diverse caseload, and I think that keeps things a lot more interesting.
Totally agree, Ashley. It makes you want to go to work in the morning, turn on the
Yeah.
laptop or whatever, because without it, since we are all pretty much remote, unless those who choose to go to the office, especially if they have young children, for those of us that don't, just turning it. I'm excited to see what I'm going to be doing, because no day is like any other day, and I prefer it that way.
I always love
Wow.
to
Sounds
Same.
like you're
say
the same kind of
immigration.
personality.
Yeah.
I always love to say immigration is never boring. I worked at a very corporate law firm before I worked for Velie Law,
Right.
and it was just so like quiet, and it's just very streamlined and organized. But here, like you said, I never know what's going to happen with the day, and I'm never bored, so I'm really thankful about that.
But it's really
Yeah,
interesting that you guys say that. Cut you off, but I recently was thinking that I spoke with some attorneys that only specialize with one type, and they didn't sound as positive and enthusiastic as Ashley and Ali, you guys sound. So it's true. I mean, it gets boring. It becomes less of a creative,
Mundane.
exciting job and more of like a robot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's where there may be more replacement, where it's more of the cut and paste. You know, it, that sort of monotony and routine sort of work. That's what I did initially for the first 17, 18 years of my career, and it just. But they were all for large corporations. So I shared, I have a similar experience to Ashley.
Yep.
And, it's interesting, but it's not that interesting. you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah, I cut my teeth on
Totally.
H's, and
yeah.
after a few years I was like, oof, I don't ever want to do just H's again. I'll, an H here and there is fine, but
Yeah.
or during, cap season when everyone's crazy, but um yeah, I definitely wanted to branch out.
Yeah.
I also
Like,
was doing large corporations for H's and then Vels and the EB1Cs, and now there's a lot more startups, which are really interesting to work with,
yes,
and more individualized cases, which are also very interesting.
exactly. I think are similar in that we have production teams to deal with those cases. So I don't get as involved in them because there really isn't a need. If issues arise, then I jump in, and I'm sure you probably do the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it's those startups and niche kind of cases that have unusual issues that we can't be replaced. There's too much of the synthesis of different things that can't actually be quantified. And then of course there's the listserv and all kinds of the multiple ALA listservs. to that help us in our practice,
Yes,
that we're all very aware of, and those things again, you know we come to a conclusion. So I think we it can amplify and assist us, but we're not replaced in on those kind of cases.
definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
those are
when
valuable tools.
yeah, they are. They really are, especially if they're used correctly, because you could have the fanciest tool, but if you don't know how to use it and you're not feeding it the data, like you said, Attorney Acker, I think it will be a tool that you can't use. Now, when it comes to visa types, you've mentioned the different, roster or portfolio of what you're working on at the moment. What would you say are the ones that you find most challenging visa type wise? So niches and niches or niches of specific startups. That's a scenario. But when it comes to visa types personally, which one do you find most challenging, or of the few that you find more challenging?
Well, any issues of excludability, or like a DUI or something like that, 5 or 10 year issue, those are problematic always. Non-immigrant side, we look at waivers, and so those are always complicated and always have been, and I think always will be. But on the other side, and I think Ashley will share my sentiments, the problems that are I find the most problematic are dealing with USCIS, where there's lack of consistency in
Yeah,
adjudication, where we don't control that. And as an immigration bar, I think it's incredibly frustrating to deal with, especially in the EB1A arena right now, where we have rogue officers, who wouldn't approve anything. They're misapplying the law, and that is really ruining people's lives. And I find that because it isn't something we can do, we can control. All we can do is complain, and we can contact LegalNet or do something like that. But it's really difficult to manage expectations of a client when we don't have control over the process, because the process is inconsistent and the misapplication of law.
yeah.
Wow.
Constantly changing in ways that you couldn't predict. I always tell clients that if I think they have a very solid case, I'll say, I think that you meet all the qualifications and this, legally should not be a problem, but I don't make any promises for USCIS because sometimes things crop up that I could have never foreseen and we'll handle it if that happens.
Right. Especially in the EB1As, there is a sort of a totality circumstances test, which is being misapplied. And it's really frustrating because I had a really, my first very, very long time. And it's really, I mean, how to explain that to a client? I warn them beforehand, but I think it's wrongly decided. So on those cases, caveat after caveat with the client, but it's upsetting because they've gotten their O visa, but when we turn to the immigrant visas, we run into this roadblock that is not of our making and not of their making.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read somewhere recently that the O1 situation going to the EB1 is almost like being in a relationship where the relationship starts, but then someone just leaves you halfway because it starts with the O1, and then you apply for your EB1 even with stronger credentials and more qualifications, and then you get denied. But I do also understand, to be honest with you guys, that the other side, which is temporary non-immigrant, is not really much of a serious status like a permanent residence is. So I think also they have something where they never want to make the process easy on the applicants. But I also have been hearing a lot about misapplication of the law and the memo policies, and so it's just really interesting to see how there's all these cycles, right? So now processing times are actually faster for things like combo cards that are being processed so quickly, whereas other processes are becoming more difficult. And then I was looking at a chart in May, I believe, after all the layoffs happened.
Mhm.
In May had the highest denial rate. So cases filed were the most denied in the entire year. And it was really interesting how that correlated exactly with the layoffs happening and all the people that worked in the tech companies trying to get an EB1. So yeah, seeing these trends is always going to be interesting to me, but there's nothing that you could do as attorneys other than, fight it. Have you taken, talking about fighting, what is the highest level of appeal you've done on an immigration case?
Oh, well, we actually are the ones that argued the Kazarian case, the case that this is based on. That was our case. So that went to the Ninth
Wow.
Circuit.
We talk
And
about that case almost daily.
yes,
Yeah.
so
Impressive.
I played a very small part in ensuring that at the district office, the case got, finally adjudicated. So that's where I love the LA office, the field office at Lato, and I was able to talk to people there and finally get his case. I finally adjudicated, but a lot of people had put in a lot of work on that case as it made it all the way to the Ninth Circuit, and we won. And yet, even though we won, we lost. And so, again, this is the misapplication that is so frustrating that we deal with. And so, yes, I am
Yeah.
familiar
Makes
with that
sense.
case.
Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah, and going back to what you were saying, Pierre, with the understaffed and the rates of denials and things like that. I think you also see that just I can tell based on the number of RFEs that I'm getting and the quality of those RFEs,
Mm-hmm.
how USCIS is doing staffing level wise. Because you can see it that when they don't have time and they've copied and pasted in incorrect petitioner names and incorrect facts and dates, and you can just tell that it's rushed and that they're you know understaffed and overworked, but that does not, I mean, they need a better level of training for sure because the misapplication of the law is inexcusable, in my opinion. Because
That's
Yeah.
people's
where I
lives
think
are on the line here.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think that's where AI could help them, because if the each of the requests for evidence, we call them RFEs, were to be scanned through a system to look for wrong names and other information, then that would prevent that from happening. I mean, there's a lot of ways that even rather simplistic AI could really help the government in doing a better job of in what they produce.
And faster processing times, which would be
And
good for
faster
everyone.
processing. Exactly.
Yeah, but then, you think
All our
about it.
concerns, and I also think we just finished this thought, and that and I'm sure you think the same, Ashley, that there, the holiday problem where right before the holidays, like now and in August, whatever, that's when we see these kind of even more crazy uh, requests for evidence that you could tell somebody just cut and pasted, slapped it together because case was premium processed and they just needed to get it out because they wanted to buy themselves more time because
Yep.
the 15 days wasn't enough for them.
Phoned it in. Yeah. Premium processing is such a great tool, but I'm always warning people, you know, you're more likely to get an RFE because if they can't respond in time, that's what they're gonna do to buy themselves some time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
And
you
I
see
think
that
about
what
it
goes.
logistically. If you pay 2,500 for premium processing, doesn't that give them enough budget to have better staffing specifically for premium processing? Shouldn't they have like a premium processing, department? Maybe they already do, and I'm not aware, but that is enough money to hire enough people to at least give them 3 full days to review your case. Because the craziest thing to me is, imagine the petitioner accomplishing so much, then the attorney and their group creating such a wonderful brief, detailed, and then no one even reads it because people are scanning through it, and you know what I mean. So that's another really difficult aspect for me as a non-attorney to understand. how is it fair, even for premium processing that does have the budget for the right attention? So what are your thoughts there? Is the premium processing supposed to just be quick? And that means quick and no attention paid? Or shouldn't it be quick and more detailed because it's a lot more money being paid?
Well, we used to pay 1,500, so
I was
now
just
it's
gonna say
20.
that they, yeah, that
Yeah, I'm
they
sure
almost
you're
doubled
thinking
it.
the same thing I
Yeah.
am. Um,
Yeah.
and and now we're paying 2,500. The fees are supposed to be based on workload and the amount of time that they need for the officer to review it. They're just supposed to be directly correlated. That's the whole point of them. That was the reason why the fees were raised, because they're legally they need to be in line with the real costs, that it's self-funded. This is the whole premise. So, on the one hand, they can't argue that they don't have enough staffing because they've misspent money on something that they shouldn't be spending money, or allocating money to the wrong product line or whatever. That's a management issue. That shouldn't be our clients shouldn't have to suffer for that. And
Absolutely.
so there's something gravely wrong, as we know, with when this is what happens.
Yeah. And it
Absolutely.
used to be that if you did premium processing and you reached out through the premium processing email that, you were guaranteed to get a very quick response and that they were going to help you out with your issue. And that is just not the case anymore.
No, pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
we knew the officers. I won't use his name, but one in particular who was amazing at the California Service Center, and always could get a hold of them on, because we'd have rush cases, and trying filed, and then filming was starting on Friday. Well, we don't do anything like that anymore, and have to tell clients, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. And that's unfortunate, and that means a loss of business. What a lot of people don't understand is that when we bring people here to the United States, especially in a case like the production team and everything, they're already here. These are U.S. jobs because of the inadequacies of the system. And so that's important to understand, for outsiders to understand, that we are in the business of job creation. Every one of our investors, they create jobs. For their payroll. So it's really important that USCIS function well, because it's in the best interest of our economy.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So many wonderful things. I love it. I will take us in one last direction today, and it's speaking about one of your favorite cases in your 30 plus years of practicing, one that stuck with you, whether it was in a positive outcome or a negative outcome, really stuck with you that you remember, if you're comfortable sharing with us.
Sure. I have often, it's a case where actually I didn't do most of the work. And sometimes being a good attorney is about reaching out to others, to help you, and knowing, your limitations. And this was an asylum case, and I took it on pro bono. And I do the ALA has the military assistance program, and I've done those cases, and those are always heartwarming to help our military. But this case was a woman from Yemen, and she was facing genital mutilation if she returned to Yemen. So I reached out to one of my favorite former judges, Judge Einhorn, who at the time ran a clinic at Pepperdine Law School, and for asylum cases. And so I told him about the plight of this woman that I was really concerned about, and really wanted to help her, but I didn't have all the skill sets to take such a complicated case outside of my field of expertise, which is business immigration. And so the students, all wanted to work on this case. And so, I played a role in the background, but they did the heavy lifting. And we and really they were able to get this woman asylum, get her green card. She was a well-educated, well-spoken woman, and she wrote me a letter that will, even thinking about it to this day, makes me cry, because her opening line was, "You saved my life." And we did save her life. And that's when we really, really make a difference, because what we do really matters. But in her case, it really mattered.
Wow,
Wow.
So
it's beautiful.
that's the
Yeah.
one that gets me. All these years
Yeah.
later, I still cry
Yeah.
because save that letter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah.
So yeah,
you,
I love
Yeah.
being able to do
you
that for her,
hear
and
you
she's
hear
gone
The
on.
stories.
And
student clinics are such a great tool. That's actually how I got started in immigration, was at a law school clinic, and I think it's awesome for the students because they get so much hands-on work, um, like right in the beginning, more than you would get at a, private firm out of school where they don't want you to, have as much hands-on. You're just writing memos and briefs in the beginning. But and I also think it's huge of you to. I think one of the biggest parts about being an attorney is knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know and finding out ways to figure out what you don't know. So you knew that, asylum wasn't in your specific area of expertise and you found a way to get it done for her. And I think that's great.
thank you.
Yeah,
Very
and
inspiring.
it's just incredible to see how you have the power to save people's lives. I mean, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm very exposed to people in asylum processes that are, prosecuted for their religion, for their political beliefs, for their sexuality, their like sexual orientation, their gender, whatever, all that stuff. But really, to hear that story, it's even beyond what I've ever seen, and it's just another world. It really doesn't feel like it's this world to me. So it's not just like another country, but it feels like 300, 400 years ago, right, for that to even happen. And to save someone from that, I think you'll be in their heart until the day they leave earth. It's just
Yeah.
it's a massive, massive thing. And attorney John Velie always says that attorneys take too much credit, and the applicant is shines, and the applicants are the ones that do all the work, the business side. But I think on this side, I really have to give it up and that really, really takes the case and argues it. Being the outside propaganda that comes in on immigration. I live in Florida, so I am very, very exposed to very negative immigration propaganda, and I just don't know how to react to it. Because I see such a different side. I see, even on the business side, I see folks that are working so hard, are becoming the best at what they do, are doing everything legally, and they just want a chance here. And then I hear people saying how immigration is not good, and I just don't understand how you could put everyone in one specific pool. And I'm going to ask you a difficult question to end today's collab, and it's, what do you think about the wrong side of immigration? And are you blindly supportive of all immigration, or do you strictly say immigration is great, but please do it the right way?
I do. I don't think we can have an open gate policy. I don't think that's feasible or desirable. I think, we have many crises around the world currently that, that are not, sometimes they are US policies. In other instances, like in Venezuela, that isn't our policy. That's the current government's policy. But we do have to have a system that works, and it is broken. So I do think we do have to have some, rules of law. They do need to be followed. We just need to do a better way of doing it. And I think this administration has had a really hard time justify, kind of balancing these issues, where there are many wonderful advocates in immigration who think that we and I just don't think that's feasible. I'm definitely from a family of immigrants, but we still have to have some semblance of order to have, to do this, and that there needs to be more background checks before people are admitted. And, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And so there has to be a balance. So, which
Yeah.
is an opinion that I don't think is always universally shared. So I'll be interested to see what Ashley thinks.
No, I mean, I
100%.
agree with you that there should be a, a process that works, and is, checking backgrounds, and I don't think it should just be, completely open. But I think, like we were saying earlier, that if there's going to be a system and there's going to be rules and there's going to be laws, that they need to be consistently applied and in a logical way, that people can know what to expect when they go into this process. And I also think that there's a broader problem in terms of society's education level on this issue. Um, like, I hear people say, they need to do it the right way and come through the legal channels when they're talking about asylum cases, when that is in fact the proper way to do it. That is the process. Um, so I just think, yes, I agree with you. And I also think the broader public maybe needs more exposure to education about this issue.
Yes, there are new that push an agenda without being factually based. They don't understand that people are not just widely showing up when they're family sponsored. They have to actually fill out an affidavit of support, which is a contract between the person that is supporting them and the U.S. government, and they have to, be able to show that they are not going to end the numbers for immigrants who committing crimes is quite low. Um, that's squarely on people who are Americans. Their numbers are much lower. Those are just facts. And the problem is that there's a lot of people where it doesn't fit. That narrative doesn't fit with their. It's really
Mm.
unfortunate because our country, we are a nation of immigrants, and they are well of moving forward. Look at the tech industry. Look at just how we get our food to our tables. All of these things, the small business in America. Why is the Chamber of Commerce nationally supportive? Because small business is immigrant business. And these things are really important aspects of immigration that the general population in the United States is unfortunately misled.
I absolutely agree.
So much words of wisdom, and I truly look at it and I say, why can't we just apply the same principles that we apply to the aviation industry? We always look at aviation, for example, because it's safety, and we say everything has to go through the system, everything has to be proper. Let's make it happen. You wouldn't want a pilot flying you that isn't, properly through training. But the problem with immigration, and the reason why it can be very logically thought out, is because propaganda, in my opinion. Again, when you bring people and you tell them these people are going to take your jobs, you're going to make your life bad, they are the reason bad in this country is happening, then it's so easy to blame. But I love seeing and hearing your words of wisdom, Attorney Acker, and I think you've left us with so much to think about. You always say the shortest things that have the most meaning, and I really enjoy hearing your words today. I do want to give Gabby one opportunity to, in closing, to give you any questions or remarks, and then we'll over to Ashley, and then we'll give you, Attorney Acker, the closing remarks.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm sorry. I honestly, I don't think I have any questions. I've just been really loving this conversation, hearing your perspective and Ashley's perspective. It's great to see the alignment, and I think I just love being a fly on the wall in these conversations. I'm not an attorney myself, but I was raised by an attorney, an immigration attorney. I've worked in this firm for many years, and I just love meeting attorneys because, like I said, I was working in more of a corporate firm where it was like more like cogs in the machine, and we were representing like trucking companies, which was like totally the other side of it, like um, complete opposite of the meaningful work we do here. So I just really love to hear those meaningful stories. Your story that you told actually was getting me a little misty eyed because it just truly is the best body of law I think that we could work in, because every day, like you said, we show up to work and it's, we don't know what the day will hold, but we do know we are helping people. And even as we're here on the Friday before Christmas and we've got deadlines going out and all this crazy stress, it's worth it to work through all of this because we know that lives are in our hands. And it just, I am always inspired to meet new attorneys who share the same values. But I
Thank you
don't
so
Yeah,
have
much,
any
Velie.
questions. Sorry.
I don't have any questions either. I wanted to kind of say the same thing that Gabby said, that it's been great talking to you, and this has been such an interesting conversation. And I love talking to attorneys who've been doing this longer than I have to see their perspective, and also just to talk about how things have changed. Because I've been doing this 8 years, and I've seen so much change over the course of those 8 years that when you've been in it even longer, I can't even imagine all the different trends and crazy things that you've experienced. Because yeah, this is like an ever evolving, ever changing area of law, which keeps it interesting, but definitely is challenging, especially when USCIS is the way that they are with their application of certain things, as we discussed.
Yes, it was
So yeah,
very different when it started. First name basis with the person who ran what was called the WAC, the Western Adjudication Center. We actually knew that person, and great guy. We could actually get things done. We'd have dialogue. It was, even though he represented the government, we could discuss things. He wouldn't necessarily agree, but that was the level of service was much higher. In those days too, we used to paper file across down at the field office. So very different than today.
yeah,
But my overall comment is that we all need to keep doing the good fight, keep and representing our clients in the best way that we can, and that remember that immigrants fuel this country. They are the fuel of this country, and so what we do matters.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Attorney Acker. Thanks everyone for joining us. I do want to also let you know that we would love to have you again. Join us any Friday that you're available. This is supposed to be a collaborative space for attorneys to speak and share their thoughts. And in the future, we'll also answer some live questions that come in. I just very grateful and excited that we had this conversation. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and thanks for